Today's lesson is going to show you how to start and complete the drawing file that goes along with the centering bushing model. Now, this model was created in a previous lesson, so if you have not done that yet, please go back and find that lesson, complete the 3D model, and next we're going to be taking a look at how to create the drawing file for this. So we're going to begin by going to File, New. English is highlighted under Templates. We're going to ANSI-inch.idw and we're hitting Create. Now this automatically loads up our D size sheet. We've talked about this before, how we need to change the size because this is going to be way too much paper for a part as small as the centering bushing. So we're clicking to Drawing Resources. We're clicking Sheet Formats, and we're going to be able to squeeze this into a B-size sheet. So I'm going to click that, hit OK, and it's going to change this to a B-size sheet, and it's automatically going to bring in our front view and our right side view orthographically. But I don't want this right side view because I'm going to be creating what's called a sectional view in its place. So this view here, you can select it, hit delete key, and then left click OK and remove it. All right, so the first thing that we should do, as mentioned before, is create centerline annotations. So we're going to be selecting the Annotate tab at the top, and we're going to be picking Center Mark. And we're going to be selecting the largest circle in the counterboard, like that. And we're also going to create one up top here for that slot, right? This is a lot to allow us to run a dimension from here to that center line to the top surface of this cutout section right there. And we're also going to be adding a center mark here. All right, to be able to pass through horizontally the middle. Now this center line here, it's going to be overwritten in a moment. When I add the section view, it's going to be covered with a thicker, larger line that runs from top to bottom. And that's what we're seeing here. So if we switch back to the hub and we pick the guide bracket centering bushing image, we scroll down and let's fix the orientation. That's what we're seeing here. We're seeing a cutting line that's called A and comes to the bottom here and finishes at A. This is called section AA. This is what we're seeing in replacement of our right side view. It is a right side view, and it orthographically will project like the one that I just deleted, but it's called a sectional view, meaning we're imagining that we're cutting the centering bushing in half vertically from top to bottom, and the arrows here are looking in the direction of what we're looking at on the inside of it. So because there's holes going through these hubs, and there's a counterboard hole here, there's a slot here, this cutting line is going to be passing through dead airspace in certain sections. That's what you're seeing here. This is the open space of the hub. This is where the hub opens up to meet this slot extrusion at the rear. And then this is what the counterboard will look like in a sectional view as well. So all these diagonal lines that you're seeing, this represents cutting marks, right? So we're imagining a saw coming down and cutting this right in half vertically top to bottom, and then wherever there's solid material that the saw passes through, it's projected in a sectional view with diagonal lines to represent saw marks, right? So it's a combination of the cutting saw passing through nothing and solid mass. So that's what we're seeing in a sectional view. So creating the sectional view is quite simple. We're going to tab to Place Views, and we're going to select Section View from here. Pick it, and then come down with your mouse and when you see this broken red rectangular box show up, just left click and then float your mouse here at this top quadrant of that circle. But don't click. Just see that green circle appear. Once you've seen it and it's in the right position, pull your mouse up. And you're going to notice, you're going to start to see this little broken dotted line appear. So when you see that, somewhere around here, left click your mouse and then come down to the other side and pick, left click again in a similar position. So left click, then right click your mouse, and then left click continue. And that's going to create your sectional view. And we're just going to click somewhere around here, and we have it. And that looks like this, doesn't it? It's the same thing. Now this label is getting a little cut off here, so we may have to adjust this. We may move this up a bit like that so it fits. So we're just going to adjust our view distances here just by eyeball. And what we also need to do is create a isometric view, right? Like we've done before. So we're going to right click, we're going to come down to create view, pick projected view, and when I see the isometric view, I'm going to left click, right click, left click, create, and that creates it. Now it's quite large, right? We're used to scaling these things down. So we're going to double click it, go to scale, and we've been scaling all of these down to 3/4. Type that in, hit OK. And then we'll just move it somewhere here in the top right-hand corner. And we may just move this down a bit too, just to fix this up. Right? It's all about looks, right? In a drawing, appearance is very important, right? We're trying to make everything look professional. So, moving on. And there is my section line, right? My cutting line. This looks better than it does on this sheet here, right? So this is labeled AA. This is the cutting direction, right through the middle, top to bottom. This is the label, section AA. Scale is 1:1. And I actually have the arrows in Inventor, right? So the arrow points to the left. That means that is the direction that we're looking at inside the centering bushing when we look at section AA, right? So we're looking at the left side of this, right? In the right side projection here. To get started with the dimensioning, I'm going to keep this 0.42 dimension exactly the way it looks on the sheet from the hub. So I'm going to pick dimension and annotate, select that center line, select this line, and I'm going to pull this off about here. Right? I want to leave a fair amount of good distance between here and here, right? And the other two dimensions are shown here and here, right? I want to chain them up. It doesn't make sense to break them apart like we've seen in this handout. So we're going to go dimension. We're going to pick, we're still in dimension. We're going to pick this line, and we're going to select the center line here. And we're going to line them up. Arrowheads must line up. Right? Notice how I picked the lines, right? The dimension extension line does not overlap the center line. That's why center lines have to be added first, right? I'm picking the line and I select the end of the center line. That will naturally include that gap for me. It's not something I need to do. It's automatic. And then the other dimension, which is from here, that center line endpoint to this center line endpoint, and that will snap in line with the first two here. So I've got those linear ones completed. And moving on now, I am still able to fit some of these dimensions on the left side of this, right? So I am still able to clean this up a bit, right? Better than what we're seeing here. So I am going to include the radius dimension. It doesn't need to stretch out all the way over to here, right? I could leave it somewhere around here, but for now I'll keep it in line with these other two dimensions, or these other three, I should say, right? Keeping them all to one side, right? So we're not crowding in between the two views here. We also need an outside diameter, 4.75, right? It's included on the inside here, right? We can fit that dimension up here or below, right? So I may just run that one like this, right? Keeping those dimensions in line with one another, right? So that takes care of that one. And I also need to be able to dimension the counterbore. So there's a neat way to do this. It doesn't show it like this on the sheet, right? Basically what it's doing is it's showing what the diameter of the inside through hole is and what the diameter of the counterboard flat bottomed hole is here. But we can dimension this in a different way. We can use what's called hole and thread here. So instead of using a general dimension, we can pick hole and thread and select. And what it's going to do it all in one shot for me, right? So I can line this up like this with the 0.38 is lined up with the 4.75. And what that shows is that this is the inside hole here, 0.38 goes all the way through, right? That's the proper short form for an engineering drawing, right? We don't actually spell it the full THROUGH. We simplify it. And what this means here, this represents, this is a symbol for counterbore. So it means, it's a counterboard hole. The larger diameter is 0.75 and it has a depth, that's what that arrow means, a depth of 0.30. So that's a much cleaner way of running that dimension. Instead of running two dimensions, we can just, kill two birds with one stone. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, so that looks good like that. And so we're doing a pretty good job here, actually being able to clean this up. I'm going to have to keep some of these dimensions on the right side, and the reason for that is I'm really running out of room on the left side to do this appropriately. I could have put this dimension up here. I chose to put it down here, but if I try to dimension this hub, I'm going to be, it's going to be too close here, and I'm going to be crossing over extension lines, which I don't want to do. So I'm going to have to do some of these dimensions on the right, and it's just the nature of the beast. We can put dimensions between views when possible, and the reason is we're just out of room here, right? So this is what we're going to be doing next. We have a couple that we're going to show. We have this inside radius hole here, this radius 0.69, and we can keep it out like this. We'll keep it generally in line with this 4.75 as best we can. And also the larger one here. Right, we could also keep that one up like this. And we'll take a look at it. If we need to make some adjustments to it, we'll make some adjustments to it. But that should pretty much take care of most of those dimensions. We still have some to do on the right side view though. Right, we may want to adjust this. Like the sheet says diameter here. So we may change this. We may change this from radius to diameter because it's showing here. It defaults to a radius, but on this sheet it actually shows it as a diameter, right? That's what that symbol means, right? The line, the circle with the line struck through it, that's the universal symbol. From one side of the circle to the other. Radius is center point to the edge. So we do have, we've already talked about the counter bores here, right? So I don't need to run those dimensions, and I just basically need an overall length next, right? So I can put that dimension up here. I'll snap endpoint to endpoint, 2.62. Keep my spacing consistent, right? The spacing I see from here to here should be consistent from here to here, right? We shouldn't have dimensions that are way too far away or way too close. Remember that little gap indicator kind of helps you, right? You're running your dimension, you see it go broken. That's a guide to kind of keep you on the right track. All right. And we're actually going to move this dimension up a bit because I need to put a dimension here, right? We need to know this back part thickness, right? We basically need the overall length, and we need to know the length of this cylindrical back part. I don't need a dimension from here to here because that's over dimensioning, right? We don't include a full chain of dimensions as well as an overall dimension, right? That's over dimensioning. We always leave one dimension out in a chain. So there's only two to show here possibly. So we show this one, don't show this one, and we just have the overall. And this is in the basic dimensioning rules note that's attached to the basic solid modeling module that you've seen. All right. And I think I'm going to make that change. I'm actually going to delete these dimensions and rerun them. And we're going to do this as a diameter, like that. This doesn't need to line up with this. You can leave this spaced out like this because this is on a whole other side here. So it kind of looks funny to have it way up high like that. So we'll just kind of keep it somewhere around here. You know, we don't have room for it on the left side, so we have to sneak a couple of these dimensions between views. It's just not possible, as you can see. And then we've got the hub. It always wants to default to a radius, so right-click, go down to dimension type, select diameter, and then try and line that up by eye as best you can. And that is basically it. What are we missing? We're missing this information here, right? The width of that slot here. I don't think we need both these dimensions. I think this is a bit overkill to have, because we know that it's symmetrical, right? So we can probably just get away with one of them. So what we'll do, and we can place that dimension up here or down here, it doesn't really matter. So we'll just go with and what I don't like is this extension line here, right? This one's okay, it's got the gap, but this one here doesn't have the gap. So I'm not thrilled with how that worked out. So we're gonna just, did you see what I did? I just grabbed it at that node, that green circle, and I dragged it down to here. And we're trying to make sure that this is spaced far enough away. All right, and this also shows 3 decimal places. So we're just going to make a quick edit here. We're going to right-click any of our dimensions, and we're going to go down to Edit Dimension Style, and we're going to select that, and we're going to change the precision from 2.12 to 3.123. Hit Save and Close, and that's going to update all these dimensions to be 3 decimal places, the same as what we're seeing in this file. Again, I don't need these dimensions here, the point, I don't need that point 300, because that dimension is explained here on the front view in the hole and thread feature dimension I used. Typically, we're not going to add center lines either. They show center lines here, but we don't need center lines in a sectional view, so we're just going to leave that alone. And we'll take one quick look at it. And you're going to notice, and hopefully you notice that when I do these things, I don't rush. I mean, even in the video, I take my time, because if you're going to rush through doing these things, they're not worth doing, because you're not going to learn, and you really need to take your time and do things correctly. All right, so that looks good to me. Last thing we're going to do is the title block, and that's going to complete this fully. So again, a review of title block creation, file, iProperties. And by now, because you've seen me do this in every drawing file video, that this is something you probably don't need me to show you, but I'm doing it anyway because, repetition is good. Title, centering, bushing, my name. The company is our school. And project, part number, 3M1, last 3 digits of our course code, and this should be I believe this is the 4th drawing, right? That we had completed. No, it's the 5th, because the bevel washer was the 4th. So this is 05, 3M1-05. Revision number, this is an original release, so we put that as 0. And we go to status, we're going to put the drawing checker's name in, and activate the date that they're going to check, and then hit apply and hit close. And that's going to fill our title block in. Looks good. That's all that we need. So that completes our centering bushing, right? Compared to what I've done to what you see on the sheet, I think you're going to agree that this makes a little more sense. And this is something that we're going to be doing on a test. When we have our test, you're going to have to run some dimensions. You're going to have to run all the dimensions on a drawing file, and you're going to need to be able to place them in the correct position. So, food for thought, something to think about. This is going to be your activity. and I will talk to you soon. Take care for now and have a great day.